It is the first week of December, and you walk to the mailbox in your robe. The ground is hard, your breath makes a cloud. You pull out the envelope from the electric company, and you already know before you open it that the number is going to be ugly. You stand there in the cold and look at it. $247, and that is just the electric bill. The gas bill comes next week, and it will be another $160. You have the thermostat set to 68 the whole month, which means your family is still wearing sweaters inside the house, still piling extra blankets on the beds, still arguing about who left the back door open for 30 seconds. $400 a month and your family is cold. $400 a month, October through March, is $2,400 a year, every year. If you have been in that house 10 years, you have handed $24,000 to a company that does not know your name and will raise the price again next winter. They set the rate. You pay it or the heat stops. Now, I want you to sit with this. There are families in Holmes County, Ohio, who have no gas bill, no electric bill for heat. They warm their homes through Ohio winters with wood and methods in use for 2 centuries. Their houses are warm. The knowledge is old and plain, and nobody who profits from your fuel bill will ever teach it to you. My name is John Fisher. I am Amish, and I farm in Holmes County, Ohio. This farmhouse has been heated with wood my whole life, the way my father Jacob heated it before me. We have never owned a furnace. I am going to show you every method we use in the order they matter, and I am going to be honest with you about what each one delivers and what it will not. Quick word before I go further. My family has used these methods for generations, and there are far more of them than fit in any one video. I put them all into a book at johnfisherbook.com. 93 methods total, and many households following them save up to $5,000 or $7,000 a year on their bills. Links in the description below. Now, back to it. The governing idea behind everything I am about to show you is this: heat is always moving. It rises, it radiates, it escapes. It flows from where it is to where it is not. You cannot stop it from moving, but you can put your family in the path of that movement and take what you need as it goes past. Heat that flows past you is heat you never had to buy. That is the whole of what my grandfather Daniel taught me, and once you understand it, every method I am about to show you becomes impossible to forget. Let me start where most people never think to look. Your south-facing windows are a free furnace. A glass window facing south in Ohio from October through March lets in direct sunlight at a low angle, low enough to reach across the floor, and that sunlight striking a dark surface converts to real measurable heat. A south window in full sun on a clear December afternoon can raise the temperature of the room it faces by 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. No fire, no fuel, no cost. The mechanism is plain. Sunlight passes through glass. Glass does not let the longer wavelength heat radiation back out. The light hits the floor, converts to heat, and the heat is trapped inside the room. It is the same reason a car sitting in a parking lot on a cold, sunny day gets warm with all the windows up. Your house works the same way if you let it work. Here is the thing most people do wrong. They block it. Heavy curtains pulled shut across south windows all day because someone told them windows lose heat. At night, that is true. A window in the dark is a hole in your insulation, and the warmth bleeds out. But in the daytime, from the first hour of sunlight until the sun drops behind the trees, a south window with curtains pulled back is your strongest free heat source. The rule in our house has always been plain. South windows open to the sun from morning until the sun leaves them, covered tight every other window through the cold months. That one habit reduces what we burn in the stove noticeably, and it costs nothing at all. The common mistake is doing it halfway. You remember to open them on Monday, forget on Tuesday, and end up with a strategy that works 30% of the time. Pick your south windows, make opening them in the morning as automatic as stoking the stove, and stick to it. The exception is a gray, overcast day. No direct sun, no gain. On a cloudy January morning, those curtains stay shut, because a window without sun coming through it is a net heat loser, and you are giving warmth away for nothing. Now to the method most people think they already know, but usually get wrong. The wood stove. The fire inside the stove is not what warms you. You cannot feel a fire from across a room. What you feel is the radiated heat coming off the iron or steel body of the stove that the fire has brought up to temperature. The fire heats the stove body. The stove body heats the room. That is the chain, and understanding it tells you what your actual goal is. You want the stove body hot, holding its heat, radiating steady and long, not the fire roaring. The mistake almost everyone makes when they first get a stove is running it too hot and too fast. They pack it with wood, open the dampers wide, get a fierce burn going, and feel proud. Then the wood burns out in 40 minutes. The stove goes cold, they reload. They are using twice the wood to heat the room half as well. The right approach is to bring the fire up, bring the stove body to temperature, then throttle back the air supply until the fire burns slow and complete, orange flames licking the top of the firebox. That stove will hold heat for hours. A fire that races white hot and fast produces heat too quickly to be absorbed by the room and sends most of it up the flue. The other mistake is wet wood, and I will be as plain as I can about this because it is a safety matter, not just an efficiency one. Wood that was cut recently and has not dried burns poorly. It burns cool. It produces creosote, the black tarry buildup inside your flue, and creosote causes chimney fires. Dry your wood a minimum of 1 full year after cutting. Stack it off the ground with the cut ends exposed to moving air, covered on top but open on the sides. This is not optional. Running a stove on wet wood is running it wrong, and wrong eventually means dangerous. I want to tell you about something my grandfather Daniel showed me in this farmhouse when I was perhaps 12 years old, on a bitter January afternoon when the stove had been going all morning. He put his hand near the stove 2 feet away and said, "Feel that. Good heat." Then he walked to the far corner of the room, near the floor, and crouched down. "Feel here," he said. I crouched beside him. Cold. Noticeably colder than anywhere else in the room. He said, "The stove sends the heat up and across, but it cannot push it down into the corners. The cold that collects near the floor is where your feet live, and cold feet make a cold person no matter how warm the air above your head gets." Before I show you what he had built into that baseboard and what it did, my family has used these methods for generations. I put all 93 of them into one book at johnfisherbook.com. Many households following them save up to $5,000 or $7,000 a year on their bills. Most folks earn back the $47 in the first month. 7-day money back, no questions. Link in the description. Now, what Daniel built into that baseboard and what it did to the cold corner. He had cut a small vent, just a few inches wide, into the baseboard of the adjoining room, low to the floor. Cool air from the floor of the adjacent space was drawn toward the heat of the stove through that opening. It fed the bottom of the fire with fresh, cool air, which kept the burn clean and complete. The cold corner in the main room warmed up because the cool air that was sitting in it was constantly being drawn toward the stove and replaced with the warmer air circulating above. The room warmed floor to ceiling instead of just head height. He called it giving the fire something to breathe toward. That little vent cost him an afternoon and a saw blade, and it has been in this house ever since. When you understand that heat rises and cold air falls, and the fire hungers for fresh air from below, you start seeing your whole house differently. The third method is the one that makes the most immediate difference for the least cost, and I say this as someone who has watched English neighbors spend thousands on insulation and still freeze their ankles. Insulate the floor from below your feet. Most houses in America have thin wood or laminate flooring sitting above an unheated crawl space or basement. The ground under a crawl space in Ohio is 42 degrees year-round. You are standing on a surface that is trying to cool you through the soles of your feet all winter long. No matter how well the stove heats the air, if the floor is cold, you feel cold because your body is losing heat downward constantly. A layer of good dense wool rugs on a cold floor changes how the room feels within 1 hour. Not a thin mat, a real thick rug with some pile to it. The air trapped in that pile is a dead air space, and dead air is one of the worst conductors of heat on Earth. That is why wool insulates. My mother Miriam kept heavy wool rugs on every floor in this house from September through April, moved to the barn for summer. She did not do it for decoration. She did it because a family standing on a warm floor burns less wood than a family standing on a cold one, and she understood that as basic housekeeping. If you want to go further, rigid foam board against the floor joists under the crawl space is a half-day job for $50 to $100 in materials and makes a lasting difference. But start tonight with what you have. Now let me tell you the method that costs nothing and requires no materials and still cuts heat loss by more than almost anything else in this list. Close the interior doors. A house is not one room, and most families heat the whole house all day when they are living in 2 or 3 rooms of it. Heat follows temperature difference. It flows from warm to cold as fast as it can escape. Open interior doors mean your stove is heating your bedroom, the hallway, the bathroom, nobody used until evening, the far spare room, every space nobody has been in since breakfast. Close those doors. Heat the rooms where your family is. The rooms you close off will be cold, yes, and you will feel it the first time you walk into them, but you will burn 1/3 less wood, and your living space will be genuinely warm instead of lukewarm everywhere. The last method I want to cover today is the one that surprises people most when I tell them how much it matters. Your fireplace, when there is no fire burning in it, is a hole in your house. The damper plate that is supposed to seal it off is almost never airtight on an older fireplace. That gap is an open pipe running from the warm air inside your living room straight up into the winter sky. Heat you burned wood all morning to make rises up that flue and disappears. Cold drops in around the edges and settles on the floor in front of the hearth. A fireplace with an open damper on a December night can drain a surprising amount of warmth from a room. The fix is simple. Close the damper every time there is no fire. If the damper plate does not seal properly on yours, buy a chimney balloon. It is an inflatable plug that goes up into the flue and seals it tight. $15 to $20 at the hardware store. When you want to make a fire, you pull the cord, it deflates, you pull it out. It costs nothing to maintain. For a house with a leaky old fireplace, stopping that one heat drain can cut what you burn noticeably. I want to say something plainly about what the heating industry does not tell you, because if you do not understand this part, you will keep thinking the answer to a cold house is a bigger machine. The gas company makes more money when you use more gas. The electric company charges by the kilowatt hour. Every degree you let escape out a leaky damper or a blocked south window or a cold floor is heat they get to sell you again. There is no equipment to sell you in the idea of opening a curtain in the morning or closing a door at night or giving a fire something to breathe toward. Nobody can write you a service contract for dry wood and wool rugs. I am not saying anyone schemed this in a back room. Nobody had to. It simply pays better to keep a family buying heat month after month than to teach them to take what the sun and the dry wood and the closed interior door already give. The knowledge was not hidden. It was just never mentioned by the people who profit when you do not have it. Here is what I want you to take away beyond any of the specific methods. Heat is not something that comes out of a bill. It is something that moves through your house already every sunny day of winter, and your only job is to stop wasting it. The sun comes through the glass and warms the floor. The fire heats the stove body and radiates into the room you are sitting in. The wool rug holds the warmth at your feet. The closed door keeps it from bleeding away into the rooms you are not using. The sealed damper keeps it from disappearing up the chimney. None of this requires a machine. None of it requires a utility company. It requires paying attention to what has always been true about heat and cold, attention that my grandfather paid and his grandfather paid, and that my people have never stopped paying because we never had a thermostat to hide behind. A home you know how to heat is yours. A home that goes cold the moment a bill goes unpaid belongs to someone else. So here is what I want you to do this week. Tomorrow morning, walk through your house and identify your south-facing windows. Every clear day from now until March, open their curtains when the sun reaches them and close them at dark. Do this every single day, without exception, and notice what changes. Second, Tonight, if you have a fireplace you are not using, reach up inside it and feel whether the damper is open. If it is, close it. If it does not close tight, order a chimney balloon before the week is out. Third, this evening, close every interior door to rooms your family is not actively using. Do it for 1 full week and pay attention to how the rooms you are using feel. Fourth, if you have a wood stove, split one piece of your current wood and look at the inside of the cut. If the wood feels cool and damp and the center is gray rather than pale gold, it is not ready. Buy dry, seasoned wood to get through this winter and start stacking next year's supply now. Tell me in the comments below what state and county you are in and how you heat your home right now. And if you have tried any of these changes already, come back and tell me what you found, because the people reading those comments a week from now will learn from your experience more than from anything I have said. I read every one. Next time, I'm going to show you how to tell whether your house is leaking heat through the walls and ceiling and what the old farmers did to fix it without spending a fortune. Once you stop the leak, every piece of wood you burn does twice the work. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, open the south windows, seal the damper, close the rooms you are not in, and remember that the knowledge that makes you less dependent on a bill and less reliant on a company has always been there. It was just never mentioned by the people whose business depends on you not knowing.